Is Monday, November 25th. I am not Amy Core. I'm Tricia Riberto. I'm the managing broker in Hinsdale and Western Springs, filling in for our coaching and training team today. I have a wonderful guest with us, Hunter. Hunter, is it Huth or Huth or Huth, right? Huth?
It's Huth.
Huth.
Yes. Yep.
Long U. So Hunter
Exactly.
is from our office, and he's our special guest today. Thank you for being here.
Happy
I
to be
know
here.
thank you. It's Thanksgiving week. I have a Diet Coke. I don't have anything healthy, a little bit of aspartame for breakfast. I know some of you out there, this is like my dirty habit. I'm not proud of it, but you got to do it sometimes. So it's Thanksgiving week. I know a lot of us are distracted with family coming in town or traveling. So for those of you that have jumped on, thank you for taking the time. And for those of you that are watching later, this is going to be a good one. So what we're going to talk about today is something a little bit different than what we've done on the previous weeks. And it's something I can say as a managing broker. When this topic comes up, there's just not enough education on it. So I think this is an awesome topic. We're actually going to talk about investments and specifically in the multi-unit space. So if you've ever had a client say, I've got, I want to buy my first real estate investment, or I have inherited some money and I want to make a sound investment, or you as an agent say, I wanted an additional income stream. I know I need to walk the walk and jump into my first investment property or my 10th investment property. Well, we have dug deep on our app properties bench, and Hunter is the go-to guy who's living and breathing, investing in the multi-unit real estate space, more so than anyone else, and truly a pro. So, Hunter, if you don't mind, would you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into investing in the multi-unit space?
Sure. My background is was in accounting and finance, and I've always wanted to be in real estate. And I, sat down one day and looked at some numbers and actually tried to figure out how these things work. And sure enough, they work. The rent that you get is more than your expenses, and you make money at the end of the day. And if you hold these things for a long time, they should go up in value too. And so the numbers just they don't seem to lie. They made sense, and I made the leap and went for it, and it's been working out really well.
So, tell us about, tell us about your portfolio and what, I know I remember you had said something like, how many units do you have that you are managing?
Yeah, so I started buying about 5 years ago, and we have a little over 110 or 115 units right now. All of them are in and around the Chicago area. Um, and there's been every single building that we've bought, there's been something about it that I've liked and that I've been able to see some value where other people haven't. And I'd say the biggest thing with that is when we're looking at buildings for sale, especially multi-units, there's in the MLS, it'll say, oh, well, this is your rent for this unit, or this unit. That doesn't really matter that much. It's more about what rents you can get when you own it, not what rents the sellers are getting. And so whether I've looked at them and said, oh, well, they're getting $2,000 in rent per unit, it should be 2,500. There's always things like that that we can focus in on, and that's how we add value with this stuff.
So you find that some of these landlords that have been, or owners and landlords that have been holding these buildings for many years, the rents are low.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Definitely. And we wouldn't go in and buy something saying, "Oh, I'm going to do a worse job than the current landlord." That doesn't make sense. So it's always what are they doing now, and what can we do better? And a lot of it is just knowing the market. And as a broker, being immersed in the real estate market, we know what rent should be. We know what the current trends are. We know where places are, where stuff's getting more expensive to buy. If it's more expensive to buy, it's more expensive to rent. And just because we're surrounded by this stuff all day, every day, makes the transition into either buying a multi-unit for yourself or helping advise a client on how to buy a multi-unit. It makes sense.
So if I've got a client that is asking me about buying a multi-unit or an investment, and I've never done it before, I'm a little nervous. As an agent going into the space for the first time, what should I do?
Well, I would go and, you're basically walking through there, and everything's driven by how much you can get for rent. So I would try to figure out or have an idea of what a place should rent for. And the whole time I'm walking through that unit, I would be thinking about, what can I rent this for? That's the base case that figures out how much a building is worth, is what you get in rent. And then I would also keep an eye out for certain like building related things that that you would look at if you're doing a single family home or an owner occupied thing. Are bricks falling off the side? Well, you're gonna have to spend some money to fix it. But that's the same thing you're looking at when you're looking at single family stuff too.
So I think the takeaway from that, if I want to, I think being a good advisor, being a good salesperson, it comes down to confidence and conviction. And if you as a broker want someone to be able to trust you and saying, this is a good buy and here's why, you better know those rental comps. And so whether if you're not actively showing rentals, then maybe you want to go in and out of some rentals that are vacant, where you can easily get in and out on a lockbox. You want to study the comps so that you can say confidently, Mr. Buyer, Miss Seller, Mrs. Seller, whoever, Mrs. Seller, whoever, no, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Seller, you know what I mean. This, I went in and out of this unit. This is a great property. Here's 3 properties that have rented for a higher amount. And this is why this makes sense. And that these rents are highly undervalued. And those are the opportunities that you're looking for, is what it sounds like, because the ones where the rents work just on paper, those are the ones that go quickly, right? Or maybe their values are going to be higher.
Yeah, that's right. And I wouldn't tell the listing broker you think they can rent for more.
Yeah.
But that's exactly right. And every time, I always look at, before I go into a showing, I always pull up the listing broker and I look what they have active right now, and what they've sold, bought or sold in the past 12 months. So I know a little bit about them before walking into that showing. I also want to have the rent roll in my hand, so I know how much each of the units are renting for. And then when I walk through, I can say, all right, well, this one's missing a dishwasher. We could put a dishwasher in pretty easily. And if we have that, then it's going to rent for a lot more. Or we're looking at it and we just say, oh, well, this seems pretty cheap compared to the 3 down the street that just rented. So before I go into showings, I'm looking at stuff like that. The other thing that I did when I was starting off, before I was buying a bunch of buildings, I would watch everything that hit the market. And I would say, okay, this one's going to sell fast. This one's going to sell slow. This one's going to sell close to the asking price, above asking, or below asking. And it's almost a little game that I would play. And once I started predicting those correctly, that gave me the confidence to be able to go out and start buying them for myself, and to also help advising clients. And then when you walk into a showing, if you can say to the listing broker, oh, well, this building down the block sold for whatever, or even if it's a mile away, but it feels pretty similar. If when you're able to say that stuff, it increases your credibility. And it also means that you're walking into a showing as an educated broker and know exactly what you're looking for.
So I love this comment about really knowing the market. And when Hunter and I were talking about putting this call together, and he said, you know, that he would kind of like gamify the knowing the market. When I was a city broker and I moved out to the burbs and got into management in LaGrange, Western Springs, Hinsdale in 2011, and I didn't know the market. I was selling condos. I set up a hot sheet search that I would look at every day just for the market. And the hot sheet, it's like an old school tool, but it just shows you the status and the activity in a given market area. And I would look at it every single day, and it just shows you what's changed, what's new, what's got a price reduction in the last 24 hours or the last 72 hours. You're only looking at those status updates. And I would do the same thing. I would see something pop up and I'd be like, ooh, that looks like a good buy. And then it would sell right away. And I was like, yes, I'm getting it. Or you'd see something and you'd say that's a good buy. And then it would sit for 2 weeks. And it's like, what am I missing? And so over time, you call it the right way and you build confidence. So when Hunter said that that's what he was doing, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I was doing when I was trying to learn a new geographic market. But this is a new type of product in the market. So I love that idea. And I would use the hot sheet tool because when you set up a hot sheet search, you could just click back to the last time you set it up. So you could just click back to the last time you checked it for a certain product type and geographic area. So one of the things that you talked about that I loved is, you know, let's say I haven't done this before. I wanna buy something for myself, or I'm thinking about buying something for myself, or maybe I'm not ready to buy something for myself, but I want to be prepared to be a good advisor for my client. And you had said I would just walk through the process like I was a buyer anyway. And I thought that was like just to prepare yourself, so you're not learning as you go. So talk a little bit about that suggestion you made.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways to approach buying a multi-unit building. If it's 4 units or less, there's personal loans or residential loans similar to what you would get if it's owner occupied. We all do a lot of business. We have our lenders we work with. Feel free to just call them and say, hey, what are the options if I'm buying 2 units, 3 units, 4 units? What are my down payment options? What's the interest rate that goes along with that? That's part one. So that way you know how much money you're going to have to put down in order to do this. And there's certain 5% down programs. There's 0% down programs for VA loans. There's all of this kind of stuff. That's good to know, because even if those don't apply to you, they could apply to your clients. And if you can put something in front of them that they're not going to think of themselves, you're being their advisor, which is the goal. So that's one aspect of this. The other aspect is just getting comfortable walking through buildings and getting comfortable seeing what these look like. And it's a multi-unit building. You as a broker can buy it the same way everyone else can. So see stuff that you like that game I would play where I'd try to figure out which ones were going to sell fast and slow. There were some that sat on the market for 150 days. I'd go walk through those because I wanted to get my head around why they were sitting there for so long. And the ones that sold fast, well, they're under contract and probably already going to be out the door. And so you're not going to be able to get through them. So I would, when you see stuff hit the market, reach out and set up a showing and just walk through the property. It takes a little bit of your time to do, and there's no reason not to do it. And it's the more of that you can do, and the more familiar you can get with these, the better.
So I love that. It's like, you can actually go through the process and prepare so that you're not learning first time a buyer calls you and says they want to do this. What I love about this topic today is 2 things. First of all, there's in one of the very first like RE 101 type classes I went to when I was new in real estate, there was a topic and it was called 5 spinning plates. And the 5 spinning plates were you really should have 5 different sources of business. I sold real estate in 2008, 9, and 10. And there were brokers that were like 90% of their business was new construction. Well, new construction died. And if that was your only spinning plate, like you were dead. And so that thought process has always stuck with me that I need to have a geographic farm. I need to have sphere related business. You know, some people only work foreclosures and short sales during that time. Well, when that market ended, they died. This is a spinning plate that very few people, very few brokers take advantage of. So when you think about your longevity in this business, when you think about your value add, when you think about how am I going to continue to make myself competitive in this business, becoming an expert in this space is an enormous opportunity. And I love Hunter's suggestion of like, just go through the motions like you're going to buy one for yourself, even if you're not ready to. If you do that, like that opens up a whole new marketing arm. Like I just previewed 3 multi-unit buildings. Anyone looking for an amazing investment, I've got numbers that work. I think it's also like a cool, like we're going into holiday party season. Like I always wanted a real estate, I still do. Like when I go into a real estate or when I go into a social event, the conversations always turn into real estate when people know you're in it. I was just at a event in my neighborhood and I've got strangers asking me about real estate. And I always felt like people know what you do. They love to talk about real estate. You can take it in any direction you want. So if you really understand this space, you know, not everybody's going to make a move, but we do have, you know, there are people sitting with cash that can make a move and do so, that are willing to invest if they make sense. But it all starts with you having the confidence and conviction to talk about it. So I love this topic. I would have promoted, I like this to me is something that we've got downtime, learn to understand it, get your bearings, and then go promote yourself as someone that, you know, saw a great opportunity and can really leverage this. The other component is, you know, diversifying our income. You know, this year was scary. We had the NAR settlement. It scared some more than others. We're cool. We worked through it. Things seem to be going great. But because our market is, or our business is so cyclical, there are a lot of brokers that own real estate, own multi-unit property, and it's an additional source of income. And so to set your sights on saying, you know, this is my goal for 2026 or whatever, I want to buy a multi-unit and have this additional source of income is just awesome. Hunter, I know you have, you know, I had asked you when we talked, like, what do you look like? What's a good buy right now? If you're obviously something with high rents and a low price and the numbers work, but what are you, when you're looking at locations, when you're looking at opportunities, what type of buys are you looking for?
My philosophy, whether it's right or wrong, this just happens to be how I think, is if the market tanks, like completely tanks, I want the only reason someone's not living in my building because I'm asking too much in rent. So for me, that means I want good locations. I want big units. I want good layouts. I want the right fixtures and finishes, all of that kind of stuff. And that's not a philosophy just because I think something might happen with the market. Really what it means is if I have all those things in a normal market, I can really, really push my rents. And pushing rents creates value, and that's, you know, creates value. Having those things reduces your downtime, it reduces your turnover cost, all of that kind of stuff. And so for me, it's location, it's size of units, it's fixtures, finishes, and it's layouts. And there's little things that you'll, you know, kind of pick up along the way. And as you're looking through these, pay attention to layouts, pay attention to layouts, pay attention to if the rent's not as high as you think it should be, there's a reason. And just pay attention to all of those minor details as you walk through buildings and look at these,
Mm-hmm.
because those minor details are basically what makes this work.
One of the things you mentioned too was lot size, which that wasn't top of mind to me because you're living in an apartment
Right.
and not like there's yard space, but you had said, if you see something and it's 10 feet larger than the standard lot, that those units are probably going to be a little bit wider.
Right. Yeah, so a standard lot in Chicago is 25 feet wide. If you're doing new construction, you need, I believe it's 5 feet of setbacks, 3 on one side, 2 on another, and so your interior is 18 feet wide. If you're walking into a building and the building maybe goes lot line to lot line or is on one of the lot lines, you could have 19 feet, 20 feet, 21 feet on the interior. It's a foot. It doesn't seem like a big difference, but percentage wise, it's a big difference and it feels different. And so just knowing stuff like knowing stuff like that's important. And as you're watching these buildings go and the ones that sit and the ones that trade fast, like pay attention to that kind of stuff, because that's really what drives a lot of this.
And so when you're talking to an investor or someone looking to get into the business or looking to getting into investing, and they're looking at the rent rolls and the expenses versus the income, can you talk a little bit about how you can get them past some of the objections about the income, the expense versus income ratios, just based on average inflation rates?
Yeah. So let's just say we're going through an inflationary period. The cost of rent should track the cost to buy. So as interest rates go up, the cost to buy goes up. So then your cost of rent should go up. Your expenses are also going to go up with inflation. What the other part of this is the loan that you get on the property. If you're buying it like a 2, 3, or 4 unit property, you're able to do a 30-year fixed rate loan. Your mortgage payments will not change for 30 years. And so, a candy bar is what, $2 now? And then in 20 years, it's going to be what, $30? Who knows? But think of your mortgage payment through those same terms. Your mortgage payment is the same dollars, whereas your rents continue to go up and up and up and up. So the longer you own these, the better your cash flow is. And it's nothing. A lot of people get impatient. They want value now. They want to flip something. They want to, all of that kind of stuff. You have to buy the right building and be patient. And especially with this stuff, time is your friend. And over the long term, the numbers start to look even better and better and better and better.
I know you have a formula that you use, and you called it we were like, do you have like a spreadsheet? And you're like, no, I use a back of a napkin, but this is how it goes. You tell us a little bit about your back of the napkin formula.
Yeah, so there's a lot of variability to all these numbers, especially in Chicago. Our tax number is probably one of our biggest expense line items. I got comfortable underwriting these just based on an expense ratio. And so that number is basically what you do is you add up all your rents, apply a 5 to 10% vacancy, and then based on where you are, what the rents are, and a bunch of factors, I would just apply a straight expense number, whether it's 25%, 30, 35, or 40%. It's different based on market and, or which submarket you're looking at and what your product type is. So I would figure out what that number is just by looking at 10 or 20 deals that have traded and look to see what that expense number is and then just apply it across. So to give you an example, I know that if my rents are $3,000 a month and I've rehabbed the building, my expenses will be roughly 25% of my income. And so I've gotten comfortable with that number. It would scare me going into a project and spending $1 million on something if I couldn't justify that. And so I've gotten to the point where I know that that's the right number, and that gives me enough confidence to underwrite these on the back of a napkin. But again, I've seen probably thousands of these buildings to get to that point. And it's something we continue to evaluate and figure out and make sure I'm adjusting to keep that number current.
We've got 1 minute and 30 seconds before this cuts us off. What's the one piece of advice to newcomers to this space? Like the one top of mind.
Even if you're not planning to buy it yourself, or even if you don't think that you can, run through the process, learn the process. You know, maybe it's not this year, maybe it's not next year, but it could be the next year. Understanding how rents and values of ownership track each other, that's extremely important. And you never know. You might find a client that's buying multi-units, and one of the best things about them is they could buy 1, 2, 10, 15 buildings in a year, and that's just one client. And so that's a big that's a huge benefit of knowing this business, is that repeat business. But you're not going to be able to advise people properly unless you go through that process.
I love it. And then I feel like once you've gone through it yourself, and then people start to know, and then they ask you and they want to do it themselves. The other thing that you had said when I did our initial interview, you would never buy something that you couldn't live in yourself.
Yeah. That's something I learned. And it's not because I'm going to live there. It's just I want something that's big, that has windows, that has the right functionality. It goes along with finding the right thing. And if I would be willing to live there, I bet you someone else probably would too. And that's what we want.
I love that. Hunter Huth, thank you so much for being here. It's Thanksgiving week. What are you most grateful for this year?
I'd have to say my family, my wife and 3 little kids.
Three little kids. That's awesome.
Yep.
We're going to have a real estate empire someday.
Yeah. We got to pay for college somehow.
Totally. Awesome. Well, I hope everybody has an awesome Thanksgiving week. Get the work in, then rest. This Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend, I love it so much because it's one of the quietest where we can actually put our phones down and spend time with our people. I'm most grateful for the people in my life. My At Properties family too. I love you guys. Hunter, thank you so much for giving your time to us. This is purely him sharing his knowledge and expertise because he's a really good dude. So thank you so much. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. I'm out. Tell Amy I did a good job. Okay, everybody?
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.